let you know that in just a couple more minutes, we're going to start our YouTube Live event. And thank you so much for joining us.
All right, good afternoon, Keller ISD. Welcome to our Kickstart Your Learning YouTube Live. My name is Christy Harold. I'm a facilitator for educational technology in the district.
And I'm Aaron Snow, and I'm a Genius team member and a senior at Foster Ridge High School.
And tonight, our chat moderator is Madeline Blair. She's also a senior. She's at Keller High School, and she's also one of our geniuses at Genius Headquarters. We're so glad that you're here to learn with us live about Google Classroom. Our theme this afternoon is Cozy Up to Google Classroom. So we hope that after this session, you'll feel more comfortable with how Google Classroom works and can benefit you and your students.
Okay, so first to start off with, if you're joining the chat for the first time, we want to make sure that you can see the chat window. This will be important for verifying your participation. If you can see the chat window on your screen on the right-hand side, like the one shown highlighted in yellow, 1 second, we'll get there, right there, then you are good to go. If you do not see a chat window to the right of your viewing screen, you need to perform 3 quick and easy steps to make that happen. Your screen may indicate that you have a YouTube channel to participate in the chat. To do that, I have put the directions on the screen and we'll talk through them as well. Click the 3 lines in the top left-hand corner. Click My Channel in the list on the left-hand side. Then click Create Channel. Now return to the website. I'm going to go ahead and walk through that one more time. Click the 3 lines in the top left-hand corner. Click My Channel in the list on the left-hand side. Click Create Channel, then return to the website. We're going to give y'all about a minute to finish that, and then we'll continue. Okay, so hopefully everyone has gone through that. So we're going to now talk about YouTube Live expectations. We ask that you please watch the entire event, introduce yourself in the chat window at the beginning of the event, please make at least 1 comment or ask at least 1 question during the live event, and we will provide you with a link to a form at the end of the event for EQ credit. Okay, now let's get started.
All right, Aaron. So what is Google Classroom? Google Classroom is a content management system, not a learning management system like you're used to with Canvas, but a system that manages digital content and assignments for you and your students. We're going to start in some browser windows and talk about how you can get to Google Classroom today and how you would actually get a class set up. We're going to walk you through Google Classroom. So it might be most helpful if you watch the webinar. It will always be saved on our YouTube channel. And so you could refer back to it later and go through the steps at a more slower pace if you'd like, or you could always open 2 windows and work while we're talking as well. All right, so to start in Google Classroom, you'll need to go to google.com or classroom.google.com. Either one would work. So we've got a browser window open to www.google.com. And then we're going to start at our apps launcher. Sometimes we refer to this as the waffle. Inside our apps launcher, we're going to look for the app Google Classroom. Once you open Google Classroom, it's going to open to a dashboard, much like Canvas does as well. And on your dashboard, you're going to see class cards. These cards will represent classes that you're either a teacher in or that you're a student in. Your dashboard might be empty if you've never opened a Google Classroom before, if you've never entered a class as a student or a teacher. In order to create a class in Google Classroom, you're going to click on the plus sign in the top right-hand corner. Once you click there, as a teacher, you're going to click Create Class. If you're joining a class as a student with a code, you would click Join Class. But today, if you're following along with us, you're going to click Create Class. Google will need you to give your class a name. Oops, sorry about that. We're going to name this class Test. Oops. We'll just name it Test Class. You can also input information in any other area if you'd like. Once you click Create, Google creates a classroom for you. And sometimes it takes a second for this to actually, there's some things going on in the background and it takes a minute to pop into your window. And you'll see that I've got a new Google Classroom class called Test. Google went ahead and chose a theme or a header image for me. Later in the broadcast, we're going to talk about how you can change that and kind of make that your own. Erin and I are actually going to work in a Google Classroom class that we've created for you today. And so I'm going to go over to my Google Classroom classes dashboard, and I'm going to click on our class Cozy Up to Google Classroom.
All right, thank you, Christy. So now we're going to start looking at the actual window. Across the top of your Google Classroom, you will see 3 components: Stream, Classwork, and People. By default, Google Classroom opens up Stream. Stream is an area of communication for you and your students. Here you can add announcements or reminders to your students, ask questions, and post documents, links, and videos. Stream ends up looking a lot like a social media feed with the newest posts at the top. You have the ability to control the settings of your stream. You may want to be the only person to post. You may want your students to be able to respond to those announcements with comments and or questions, or you may want your students to be able to contribute to the stream. All of those are options in your settings. So I am going to go ahead and make a post, and I am going to say test. So when you make your comment, you just come down here to the bottom right and click post. And now it will show up on the feed.
Thanks, Erin. Another thing I want to point out on the stream page of Google Classroom is this little box over here to the left. Your students and you as a teacher will see this box if you have upcoming assignments that are scheduled or things that are due soon. If I click View All there, what I get is a to-do list for myself or for my students about what's in my Google Classroom. All right, let's talk about the next component of Google Classroom, which is Classwork. This is really where you're going to spend the majority of your time as a teacher and as a student in Google Classroom. Everything in Classwork begins with this big Create button that's always right here in the top left-hand corner. So we're going to start there. Classwork, as you see, can list assignments and materials for your students. We've got a few posted for you here. One thing you can do as a teacher is you can organize your Classwork page with something that Google Classroom calls topics. Topics are these large headers that you see that separate my resources or my assignments for my students. It makes it a little more visually organized for them. You can imagine if you work in a classroom all year long with your students, that your list of assignments would be pretty long. So it's going to be great for you as a teacher to organize your Google Classroom from the get-go. So let's talk about create, and let's talk about a topic. Topic is that visual header, and we're going to add one today. We're going to add the topic projects. Whatever topics you add are going to depend on how you organize organically in your classroom. It might make sense for you to organize your topics by 6 weeks. It might make sense for you to organize your topics by types of lessons that you teach or activities that you do. You might have vocabulary quizzes, tests, daily work, or you might organize by unit. If you teach science, it might make the most sense for you to organize by solar system unit, matter unit, that type of organization. However you organize, it's probably going to be very important that you have one topic at the top of your page that says something like class resources or class materials. That's going to be a place where your students would probably go all year long to have access to resources that you want to push out to them. So that leads us into the second part of what you can do in this classwork component of Classroom. You can create something called a material. A material is an item that you want your students to have access to, but it's not going to be graded, and it's not going to be something that's put on their to-do list. It's kind of a placeholder for resources. At the beginning of the year, if you're an elementary school teacher, it might be your class rules. If you're a teacher who has an online textbook, it would definitely be the online textbook. But this is where you add those types of items. So what we're going to add right now is a link to the KIC website. If you're not sure what the KIC website is, it's a website where we've just got resources for you for educational technology items that we have in the district. Once I've got a title in there and the description you can see is optional, I definitely want to choose what topic I want this material to go to. And since I want it to be something that you can access all year long, I'm going to choose that topic, class resources. Right here is what Casey Bell calls the magic toolbar, or where all the magic in Google happens. Casey Bell is a blogger. She's a Google Master teacher, and she has all kinds of articles and blogs and tweets about Google products. But she loves this toolbar, and it really is something that is a great assistant to you in Classroom. You have the option to add attachments to your material. You have the option to link to something in your Google Drive. You have the option to add YouTube videos, and you have the option to add a website link. So since this is a website, we're going to add it here. And you can see it pops into that material for my students. One option up here at the top is really unique in Google Classroom. I have the option here to assign this material to multiple classes. I could assign it to that test class I just created or other classes I have that are active. Or I could assign this topic only to specific students in my class. Maybe Sarah and Madeline and Chloe don't need that material, and so it's not necessary for it to be in their Google Classroom. I have those options at the top as well, which are great. When I'm ready to post, I have 3 options for posting. If I post my material right now, my students are going to be able to see it right away. If I schedule it, I can set it to post on a date and time that I choose. Or I can always save it as a draft, and I can come back and post it later. I'm going to go ahead and post that material right now. And you'll see that it was added at the bottom of my class resources. So let's go ahead and move on to the next part of classwork, which is probably what you would do most with your students. It's creating an assignment. And once you see this window, you're going to see that it's very similar. I can choose who my assignment is going to go to. I can choose by class and assign it to multiple classes. I can choose by student if I'm wanting to differentiate some. I give it a title. In this instructions window, I have a lot of room to do lots of instructions for my students. If I want to list multiple things here that I'm asking them to do, I can have all of my instructions here. This window can expand to a very large size. Main difference with an assignment from a material is an assignment could be graded or ungraded, and I can assign it points. If it's just something I want my students to do, I can choose ungraded. If I'm going to grade, I can assign it 100 points or fewer points, whatever I choose. Here for my assignments, I pick a due date and a due time if I'd like. Again, I want to give it a topic because I want it to be organized. So I'm going to put this one under first 6 weeks. And then I'm down to my toolbar. Maybe I want to add an attachment. I want my students to read this attachment. Then I also want my students to watch a video on Google Classroom. So I'm going to search YouTube. Let's say I'm going to have them watch that tutorial right there. Then I want to add a link, and I've got a great blog post up here about Google Classroom. So I'm going to grab that link. Oops. Oh, did I accidentally close it? All right, let me get back to it. There we go. Oh, I think it might have, oh, there it is. That was a great learning on the fly there. It saved a draft, even though I accidentally put a window on top of it. So I'm going to edit this now that we're back here. And I'm going to add that link this time. There we go. And I have, I want my students, when they're done with all of those things, to answer some questions. So I've got a Google Doc that I've prepared for them. We're just gonna maybe grab this one. And it's got some questions on it. One of the great things about Google Doc is I have some options here. I can have my students only view the file if I'm trying to just give them information. I can have them edit the file. That would mean all of my students would be in that same doc, or I can make a copy for each student. And that's what I want to do with this assignment. What Google does in the background when you choose that is it makes a copy of the doc for each student and names it the student's name and the title of the assignment. So I'm not flipping through papers, wondering whose paper it is. I know that each student has a copy. Once I'm done with all of those things, I have the same 3 choices on assigning. I can assign and my students will see it immediately. I can schedule it for them to see it when I'm ready, or I can save it as a draft. So I'm going to go ahead and assign that. And what we're going to see is it's going to pop under that topic first 6 weeks. You see it there. I can click on it to expand it or click again to minimize it.
Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and look at how to make a quiz assignment. A quiz assignment is a graded Google form, and when you choose quiz assignment. So we're going to go ahead and click quiz assignment. So again, you still have the option to assign it to different classrooms. You can also choose your students. You still have the option for a title. So we're going to go ahead and name it test. And then the instructions, just like the other assignment. So we'll just you also have the option to put a certain amount of points, a due date, and the topic. Grade importing tells Google to take the student score from the quiz and put the grade into Classroom. A question. So we're going to go ahead and assign it real fast. And then we are going to Then here we have the import grades. Then we have the option to enter questions. So we're going to go ahead and edit this document to right here. So then here we go. So then you can make the title of your question. So we could just title this, what's 2 plus 2? And we can make it multiple choice, check boxes, or drop down. So we're going to do multiple choice for right now. So then we're going to have option 1. Then you do have the option to add more options. And this can continue. Okay. So now you can decide if your question will be graded or ungraded, a due date, time, and topic.
Super job, Aaron. Let's go back to, I'm going to get back to our classwork. One other thing that's unique about Google Classroom is you can create something called a question. Aaron just did a quiz assignment, but you also have the ability to do something called a question. You have all the same features that you had before, but you can simply ask your students a question. You can have them answer. You can give them lots of instructions. You can give them resources to read if they need to research about that question. You can grade it if you want to. One unique thing about questions is you can have students reply to each other as long as you have that setting open. And you can have students edit their answer if they change their mind after maybe some more instruction time. The questions are just a unique way to get feedback quickly, or maybe an exit ticket out of your classroom, those types of things. You also still have that magic toolbar with the question, so you can add any of those things that you want to, any kind of content to your question. I'm going to close that one out, and so I think we've covered everything on the Create button, except this little button called Reuse Post. Reuse Posts allows you to reuse an assignment, so that's kind of a neat feature for time saving. The last component of Google Classroom at the top is People. And People is where your students and co-teachers in your class would be. You see it's divided into two sections, teachers and students. Right here is where I could add other teachers to my class. Co-teachers have the same rights as teachers in Google Classroom classes. The only thing they can't do is delete a class. Below that, I have the ability to add students. So one thing that's important for you to know about Google Classroom is it is not rostered by our district. So you'll need to add students to any Google Classroom class that you create. There are a couple of ways to do this. For older students, you're probably going to want to utilize the code that you get when Google creates your class. That code is always posted on the stream component of your page. Might be a good idea to have all your kids sit down with Chromebooks one day and get everyone into the class at the same time by just displaying the code. But if you're teaching younger students, that might be difficult or cumbersome. So one thing you can do is enroll your students with email. I'm just going to enroll Aaron. He's already in my class, but I'll enroll him again. I can obviously search and find my students in our email system. Or Sarah and I have had really good luck with taking a copied list of email addresses and pasting it into this window. And it just finds the students that we're wanting to put in our class. So that is a very handy part of Google Classroom. Once you have students in your class and they've accepted your class, you can see that some of my students are invited but didn't accept yet. I can have action items with students. So if I need to email Autumn or remove her or mute her, which is kind of very important, maybe Autumn's not behaving on the stream page. I've allowed my students to post in the stream and Autumn's aren't pertinent to what we're learning. I can mute Autumn and she would still need to do all of the assignments. She just wouldn't be able to contribute to the stream. We wouldn't see her comments there. Another thing that happens once your students have joined your class is you have the ability to invite their guardians. You can see here that I am able to invite Autumn and Chloe's guardians because they've joined the class. And much like a parent observer in Canvas, a guardian is a parent or a guardian of your student that you're inviting, and they'll be able to see work that their student does, but no one else. They'll also be able to see teacher announcements, but not any posts on the streams that were posted by students that are not theirs. Inviting guardians is simply an email process again. We had one teacher who told us that what she did to make this a little bit easier was she had 2 windows open on her computer screen or her monitor, and she copied guardian email addresses from TAC and pasted them over into Google Classroom, and it made the process a little bit less cumbersome. Let's look at what a guardian email might look like. Got one posted here in class resources. So this is an example of what a weekly summary, a Google Classroom weekly summary might look like for a student. I'm going to see missing work that student hasn't turned in. I'm going to see what's coming up for that student, and I'll see activity from each class that this student is a part of or my student's a part of. So it's just a small summary that the parent gets each week or the guardian gets each week, letting them know what's going on in the class.
Okay, so let's go back to classwork and look at turned in assignments. To expand an assignment, question, quiz, or material, click on it, then click View at the bottom. This takes you into the grading area of your assignment. This is where you can grade and give feedback on student assignments. Once graded, assignments, questions, and quizzes should be returned to students up here in the top left. So right here on Autumn's, we could give her a 20, and then we would say return. So
Are you sure about that?
Returning this to her would disable our ability to edit it, and only she would be able to see it from there.
Good job, Erin. All right, let's talk about settings in Google Classroom. When you're on any component of Google Classroom, you're going to see a cogwheel in the top right-hand corner, and those are your settings for the class. Here's where you can edit your class details or add more information if you need to. It's also where you can control your code. You could display it, copy it, reset it, or even disable it. If you find students are mischievous or getting into your class when they're not supposed to, you're definitely going to want to disable that code and then enable it again when new students come. Just a word of warning, once you do disable it, you'll get a new code each time. This is also where you control your stream. Maybe you only want to post for a while in your new Google Classroom, but as your students get used to it, you can move the level up to where they could post and comment. This is where showing deleted items is where you're able to see what you've deleted. And then guardian summaries is something that must be turned on in order for it to work. Once you make any changes in settings, you'll need to save. And once those are saved, they'll take effect. I want to head back to the stream page because I want to talk about that theme that Google Classroom chose for you. On the stream page as a teacher, in the bottom right-hand corner of that header, you're going to see the option to select a theme. Google's got some preset themes for you. They just recently changed all of these to kind of like comic images or graphics. They used to have a bunch of live pictures that you could choose from. So your Google Classroom has these set up for you to choose. They're the perfect size. However, if you're the kind of teacher that wants it to be a little more individualized, a little more you're going to want to upload your own photo. So you're going to upload something from your computer. Obviously, looking at the size of that header, you're going to want a long rectangular picture. There are tons of blog posts out there about the size of the Google Classroom header and how to create one or how to pick the right picture, the right image. Once you choose an image that's going to fit width-wise, you just pull these handles over and drag it to where you want it to, how you want it to look, and you select it as your class theme. You'll see that it changed my theme up at the top using my picture. So that's one way to individualize your Google Classroom. All right, we are going to go live again.
Okay, there are many resources out there for learning Google Classroom. One great Google Classroom expert and author is Alice Keeler. And guess what? She's one of our keynote speakers at Keller University this summer. She will also be teaching classes after the keynote on Thursday, July 18th. We've got 2 of her books with us tonight, and we'll be happy to check them out if you wish. 50 Things You Can Do with Google Classroom and 50 Things to Go Further with Google Classroom.
Thanks, Erin. There are another resource that I mentioned, we're going to head back over to the slideshow, is KIC Bell. KIC Bell, again, is an author and a blog poster. She shares all kinds of master teacher Google tips, and we've got her blog post or her link right here, shakeuplearning.com. We also have a link to Alice Keeler, the keynote who's coming to Keller U. We have a link to Google for Education on Google Classroom. Lots of great tips there. Google Classroom support if you run into troubleshooting that you need to do. And also the KIC website. On our KIC website, we have a page for Google Classroom with a slideshow that'll take you step by step on creating yours and some resources. We're so glad that you were able to join us tonight. We want to say thank you. Thank you for learning with us. I want to thank my co-host, Erin Snow, tonight. Thank you, Erin. And I want to thank Madeline, our chat moderator. Thank you, Madeline. And Sarah and Erin for assisting behind the scenes as well. As we sign off, we want you to get this link, and Madeline is also going to post this link in the chat for you so you don't have to write it down. This is your link. If you'll fill out this form for if you're needing EQ credit, and once you get that filled out, we'll enter you into an Eduphoria class and get that credit granted tomorrow. And then Madeline's also going to post a link to this slideshow just so that you have links to the resources. So if you'd like those, you'll see that link in the chat as well. Thanks again, Keller ISD. We hope you cozy up to Google Classroom. We appreciate having you tonight.